Hey everybody, welcome to this bonus episode for the Dodgebrush podcast. Um, I'm joined by two of my close friends. You guys want to introduce yourself really quickly?
Yeah, I'll go first since I'm the next person on the screen. My name is Josh Kao, and I currently work at 31st Union slash 2K Games. And yeah,
I'm Mitch Mohrhauser. I am currently at Sucker Punch Studios, and yeah, concept artist over there.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me, guys. Good to see you. So, the overall topic that we're going to be exploring in this episode is art communities, art forums. I guess mostly community based stuff. But before we get to that, we're just gonna kind of uh, do a little walk down memory lane. As I mentioned at the top of this episode, um, we've known each other for quite a long time. I think I'm really proud of us kind of staying in touch throughout all these years. I guess like 2008. That's when sorry, I don't want to tell the whole story myself, but yeah, like for me it was my second job, and for you guys it was your first job. We all worked together at a studio called Ignition Entertainment in Florida. um, and yeah, I thought it was really interesting just because obviously none of us were native to the area, and we all kind of left. Well, Mitch and I, we left home. Josh, you came straight from LA, right?
yeah, I was actually in school, and then I got the job and I moved over there.
How did your friends react to that? Were they like, "Ooh, look at you! You don't even need to graduate to get a job"? And
No, I think to be honest, it's like I don't think anyone really know. Like Ignition was kind of a smaller company, so it wasn't like on people's radar. But yeah, it was cool. Like yeah, I mean back then it wasn't like I don't think there was social media really, so it wasn't like everyone knew like oh someone got a job and they're going somewhere, right? I don't think LinkedIn was a thing, Instagram wasn't a thing. So yeah.
yeah. And so what was it? I'm curious, like, because I don't think we've ever really talked about this, but what was it like? I guess going into the idea of like, okay, I'm going to be first off starting my first job, but second, I'm going to be moving to the other side of the country. Um,
Mm.
the only thing I
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. That is an interesting question because like going to art school, I moved all the way from Connecticut to LA for art school in art center, right? And so for me, that was like moving around was I was kind of used to it, so that didn't really affect me too much. To me, it was kind of exciting to be honest, just to be able to like work in a game studio. So I remember back then I was pretty excited, even though like I didn't really know too much about the company, and then even Florida, I was like I don't know anything about Florida. I just know it's like really hot there, but overall, like yeah, it was like uh, I remember that moment was like pretty fun. You know.
How about you, Mitch?
Yeah, I mean, it was. I had never moved away from home. Like I was living in a small town in New Mexico called Las Cruces, and I was still living with my parents, and concept art was. I was going to school at the time at the local university there, and it was so when I got my first job offer, I was actually I interviewed at a studio in Houston as well at the time, but also at the same time I got an interview opportunity at Ignition in Florida, and I had never lived away from home, hardly had ever even like traveled outside of home. So I mean, it was like it's almost clear across the country, so it was a pretty big move for me. But I was definitely ready for it because I was kind of just itching to get out of New Mexico and kind of experience things. So it was exciting for me.
If I'm not mistaken, or if I'm not misremembering, uh, it might be the studio in Houston. I remember you were telling me because I think I was like in communication with you. or you might have told me this after you joined, but you were like, yeah, it was a studio that was it was within a dental office or something like that.
Yeah, it was a weird setting, and I mean, I didn't know it was my first job. I didn't know any better. I was like, maybe this is normal, maybe video game studios are ran out of dental offices, but I think it was just like attached. It was kind of like there was a number of businesses, and they were a smaller video game studio, so there was like several businesses in there. But I believe the parent company, or it was like the person who funded it, ran a dental company. It was something like that. I can't remember. It was so long ago, but it was very strange.
Okay. Yeah. No. So you guys ended up packing and moving over to Florida. So Mitch, I think you joined the team before Josh did, right? Like Josh came a little bit after that.
Yeah, I think so. I don't remember how much longer, but yes, I believe you were definitely the first person I met there. So
Yeah, I think I might have joined like maybe like 4 or 5 months after Mitch, or 3, 4 months, something like that.
Was it really that
yeah.
long?
Right? Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No,
Um, no, I don't. Yeah, I don't remember how long it was that Josh joined afterwards, but I definitely remember. I definitely remember you, Robin. You were like you were a great like first person to work with because you were very like open and outgoing, and I definitely wasn't that way. I was very shy, and so you like definitely made me feel at home, and like it made me feel much more comfortable when I started working there. So
oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I
you're a good dude.
thanks, man. I appreciate it. No, I think the whole Florida experience really stands out to me. I guess I guess throughout like my life, honestly, it's like it was my first time moving away from home. Like, I mean, I guess the other time before that was from San Jose to San Francisco, which is just an hour's drive. But yeah, it was kind of scary. Like to be honest, I was really nervous. Didn't really know what to expect from the studio, and my first job was like right next to like where I basically grew up. So I was very much in my comfort zone when I had my first job at Cryptic Studios. But I don't know. I think like I might have been a bit naive, but like I just never really thought about the idea of um, that I would have to move for a job. Like I thought like, oh yeah, I live in Silicon Valley. There's video game companies here. I'll probably work at EA at some point. They're in Redwood City. They're not too far from me. I just never. I think maybe I thought like, okay, maybe there's a chance I'm gonna have to move down to LA. Like that seems like um, kind of like a hub for video game studios, and like maybe that's what's in store for me. But like to be honest, like when I got the offer for Ignition Entertainment, I was like, well, got nothing else. So
Sure.
um,
Yeah, that's funny that you think that way because I was almost the exact opposite of where I was like, I definitely have to move if I want a job in the game industry. I was like living in a place where there's no game jobs or, no, and it was unthinkable. So it was always on my radar that I would definitely have to move somewhere to work in the game industry.
Yeah, I feel like at least for me at that time, I was definitely at that mentality of like, whoever's offering a job, if it looks like it's something I'm interested in, I'll move for it. And I think back then you couldn't do like remote work either, right? So
yeah.
it's very rarely you could do remote work. So I
Yeah, it's
feel
just
like
like
moving
freelance.
was, yeah, only freelance you could do that. And like if you're actually part of a team, you have to be on site, right? So
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously, like I I've moved a lot since I started, so it's like now I understand. I mean, it didn't take too long for me to understand, but it didn't make the idea of moving to like another state and like not really knowing anyone like any less scary or just kind of like nerve wracking. One of the concept artists that we worked with, actually two of them, Armand de Cuba was, I don't know if he was a lead when I got there, but he was the only concept artist there. And I actually went to school with him at the Academy of Art University. I don't know if we had classes together, but like I recognized him. Um, so it was nice to be able to have a familiar face, even though I didn't really know him very well at the time. But then uh, another concept artist that joined at the same time as me was Dan Cross, and he actually kind of made the I guess the transition a bit easier because like he literally like moved at the same time as me, and he got hired at the same time as me, and with the same start date. So he was coming in from Chicago, um, but yeah, I mean like we'd go out and drink and just explore the city. But I felt like when you guys kind of came in, I felt like okay, I felt like we had like a bit of a friend group, a little bit of a community between us, and Mitch, you had Amy with you, um, so um, yeah, I always think back to we had that one photo of us three at Dragonfly. Do you guys remember Dragonfly?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, we only went there like once, right?
Yeah, I only
Didn't we?
remember it once.
Wait,
I just once.
really? Did we only go there
Yeah,
once?
yeah. I swear to God. Yeah,
Oh, okay. I guess
I was
maybe.
telling Amy that I was like, I think we only went there once. I was like, maybe a second time, but I was like, I don't think we ever went again.
yeah. Because we go other place too, but
Yeah.
or Mitch's place or Robin's place,
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
Oh,
yeah, I do want like part that was nice though, like having to move to Florida and then like you just said, like I didn't know anyone there, right? And so having at least like artists that is in the concept industry or that has the same thinking and like interests, right? I think that really made that time in Florida just much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
yeah. No, I feel the same way. It's like the job was not the best, and but I think that like just that was definitely a job where like I felt more excited about having friends or making friends or being able to see my friends uh, than I guess like the project and the politics and the work. Um, but I think it was still fun being able to see like I think that like between the three of us and then you throw in Dan and Armand, like I felt like we all had like pretty different styles. So like I think that it was a really cool opportunity to kind of see like I guess the world that we're working within sort of rendered and designed in you know the same language but different approaches. Um, Josh, I think that like out of us all, you were kind of like the photo basher kind of guy.
Uh, Maybe I didn't really use Photo Bash back then though. I think so.
Or I mean, maybe I'm speaking more to your background. I know like
Uh,
with the game, it didn't there weren't really many opportunities calling for photo
yeah,
bashing.
Was it around that time that it was kind of photo bashing was kind of like really taking off? It was. I remember. I remember
that was
it always
like
felt like slightly. I mean, in the beginning, it felt like slightly cheating to me, right? Like to
Yeah.
do photo bash. I didn't. All the concept arts I loved were seemed like they were just drawing it straight out. So I was like in that mentality in the beginning. Obviously, that's changed a whole lot now. Now it's just an
I
industry
think
standard.
Photo Bashing. Yeah, I don't think Photo Bashing was like in 2008 was like a thing though, right? I think I did more Photo Bashing like in school around like after that. I believe like 2009 or 10 something like that.
I I think I remember seeing some of your pieces of
Yeah,
that. Unless you're if you're not photo
I don't.
bashing, you're really doing some amazing work. But uh,
I actually don't remember my portfolio back then though. It's changed so much.
I
So
I remember it's like you saw in every art center student's portfolio where it's sort of like a bird's eye view isometric uh sort of landscape, and it's like a large city. I mean,
oh yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure if that called for any photo bashing, but I remember you had one of those in your portfolio. um
Oh, that one. I think I know which one you're talking about. That one is actually, yeah, I guess it is kind of what I did was I took like Gundam models and I took photographs of it and lit it and I painted over that. I
Ooh,
think that's the one you're talking about. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. I I was like, I think in preparation for this recording, like I was kind of going back to I was using the Wayback Machine, the archives online, trying to find my old website and to see like what my work looked like. And none of the links like really work, but like some of the thumbnails, like I was like, oh my gosh, like I remember that piece so bad.
Isn't it painful when you you like you block it out of your mind at a certain point, and then you see it again, you're like, oh man,
Yeah,
that
like
was
going
me, wasn't it?
definitely like when I see the some of the stuff from like I used to post on conceptart.org in like the sketchbook section. Wow, it's so bad, man. Like the the taste and everything is just man. Yeah.
Does that ever change? I mean, like I feel like sometimes it would be like a thing I did, a couple weeks ago, and I'll look back at it and I'm just like, oh man, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
It still happens.
I I don't really look back at my work with much pride, but like there were some instances where like I think I use statcounter.com just to like monitor like visits to my website every so often, and like I saw that like someone was like coming in from my blogspot uh, site, which I don't use anymore, but I guess it's still online. And a lot of the stuff on my blogspot is like, the links are broken so you can't see the images. But there are um, there's some artwork there, and like, so I was kind of scrolling through it for like, a couple pages. I was like, oh, gross, and oh, I'm glad that doesn't work. But then I came across some that was just like, oh wow, like I
Right.
see something here. Like I kind of remember like actually working on it, and there was a little bit of me being proud of myself. Kind of like, oh okay, like I wish I did more of that nowadays. But yeah, more often than not, I don't want to see my work.
Yeah, definitely. Some old pieces can be either terrible or some you're just like, it actually wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't as bad as I remember.
One thing that I was going to talk about once we get to talking about like art communities and stuff like that was uh I swear to God, it's not a vanity thing, but it's I was looking at I remember I was on ImagineFX, the magazine, and so I went back and I looked at like some of the pages that I was featured in, and I was just like, dude, why did they put me in the magazine? Like, so I did not feel worthy, and it was like, I think my first time on ImagineFX was it was the magazine cover, or I guess like the featured artist, like his art is plastered on the cover was Christian Altsman, who works at ILM. So I was just like, and I think that like his article ends just as mine begins. So I was like, oh God, someone's like gone through 3 or 4 pages of reading, you know, Christian Altsman's wise words, and then seeing his artwork, and then they turn a page, and all of a sudden it's mine, and I'm just like, oh God.
You were a superstar, Robin.
Oh God, shut up.
That was
Um,
a cool magazine, though. Like, I felt like that popped up at the time, well, like right as I was getting into concept art. And so living in a small town, like having access to that magazine it was like amazing that I could see all these other people like get tutorials, like figure out what the bar was, what the standard is. Um, it didn't make me feel so like small and alone. Like
mhm.
it was a really cool magazine. Like when it first came out, that they were even publishing stuff like that.
You'd mentioned this earlier, Josh, of like us hanging out at Mitch's place, and I just remember like you know I don't know. I guess like at my first job, I was the only concept artist. The only person that I really kind of like bonded with, a mutual friend of ours, Josh Ryan Roth. We'd hang out sometimes, but I think that like when we would like go out to drink or hang out at Mitch's place, like we would talk shop, and I felt like that was just like I don't know. It felt nice. I think maybe just kind of, knowing that I wasn't the only person that felt this way, whether it's a positive or negative. And once again, us kind of all being away from home, and sort of being able to have people that we could just grab lunch with, and hang out with, after work or whatever. It made it seem like a lot more, like, I mean, obviously I've been able to experience that after our time at Ignition and everything, but I felt like being able, like, that experience with you guys was like the first, so it was probably the most impactful. So I was really glad that you guys were always up for hanging out and grabbing lunch. Like Mitch, I know after Josh left, like you, me, and Amy, we'd always get lunch at the mall. um,
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was a good first experience. I mean, at least my first experience of working in the industry. I mean, as far as like the friendships that we built, because I had worked at I've eventually went on to work at other studios and stuff, and I felt like people wouldn't get together the way that we used to get together back then. I still had friends at other studios, but it wasn't like kind of the way that we all hung out, like even after work, and would just talk about art and just how things are going. So it was great to have that there, like that first experience, being like friends with all of you. Also, just the studio in general was kind of, um, it was a good place to first like dip your feet into what concept art then working in the industry was gonna be like, and you could like make a lot of mistakes there
mm,
and not have it matter too much. But obviously along a lot of bad stuff came along with the studio as well, but it kind of like helped us in at least for myself, helped me in the future realize like this is what you don't want to see at a studio, right? Like it helped you learn.
yeah, I think, like, without having to get into deep details, but so yeah, there were like a lot of complications that took place at the studio. And I think that that's what kind of drove us to, I mean, in a backwards way, it kind of helped us develop our bonds together and be more trusting of each other. But yeah, it's like during my time there, because Mitch, you were there longer than Josh and I, but after a year of service over there, like, we went through three art directors. um, so that means the art styles changing over and over again. The thing that was approved last week, last month, you know it no longer matters. um, but yeah, I think that, like, you make a good point. It's like it's a good sort of testing ground, because, and it is sort of like, because it's you know small company, it's not getting the resources that you might expect from a bigger company and all that. It's like, yeah, like, in some cases there are some worst case scenarios that are being played out, but that probably makes, hopefully, uh, the future companies that we end up joining a bit more of a, I guess, an, a less rocky path for us. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's definitely like, at least like, I definitely have been at a lot of different studios since then, and I get the feeling there's like no one perfect studio. Like a lot of the studios has like some stuff that's going really well, some stuff that's not going as well. So I think what Ignition did teach me is like, hey, what are some of the stuff I'm looking for in a studio, right? And like the more studios I worked at, the more I'm like, I know what I want to look for myself, and so then you start being more selective, right? I think starting out, I was definitely in the mindset of I'll just take whatever job that's available, I'll learn from it, get my foot in the door, and then yeah, have my choice later.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Josh. It's like, no studio is perfect. um, but there's always the hope that, like, it's gonna be a fun place or a place to learn. um, but yeah.
It's also I just want to add to one thing too is like,
Yeah.
like kind of what you're saying is like, well, you hope a studio is like this, right? I did notice, like, I did realize as we get older and we're in like it's like a senior or lead position or higher, right, or art director, in a way, instead of like always thinking about like what would this studio have that I like, sometimes you're the one that would bring the change, right?
Mm.
So like being able to like come to a studio and reset the culture if the culture is not good, I think it's something like us with our like if you have that experience of like, hey, I think this a successful studio needs to have a strong culture. I think it's really up to the person also that can make that change.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you say that because like I do remember like within our concept team, like more often than not, I would kind of send you guys links to cool art here, or cool trailer here. I tried to just like share the things that like I really enjoyed, and I felt like you guys were okay with that. But I've definitely been to other studios like afterwards, after that, and like I would kind of do the same thing, and I felt like that was kind of me bringing something that was received kind of positively at Ignition, and kind of you know um, hopefully enhancing the culture at other studios. Like I have thankfully received like compliments from people saying like thanks for getting that started. um, but yeah, you guys were sort of like the guinea pig of it all. But yeah,
Yeah, you're always really good at finding stuff.
what's my
Can
nickname?
yeah, I was gonna use. We used to call you Chugo.
Well, here's a
Oh,
funny thing.
Chogo. Is it Chogo or Chugo? I don't know how you would say it, but
The reason why you're asking and not sure is because you've never said it out loud. Like no one has
yeah,
ever
yeah.
said it out loud.
We've always just typed it,
Yeah.
but it is true because like you're always the first one to be like, "Hey, did you see this? That's so cool!" Like I was like, "Oh shit!" Like I'm so sorry. So I say this.
Robin was
So,
always
It's
the
okay.
first to know.
he was like always a first, and then if someone was like, "Yeah, I remember seeing this," and then Rob was like, let me look for it. I think I know what you're talking about." I'm like, "Yeah,
I what can I say? I'm a nerd, I guess. I did want to rewind back just a little bit to once again, it's just like I felt like what we were able to have as friends back, us being friends back in Florida, like it was it's something that Mitch, you were saying is something that you don't really. I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I guess like the level of tightness that we had, it's something that's maybe not been easy to replicate, or maybe you just haven't found those type of experiences like within the studios you've been a part of since. Like I think that that's something that I'm realizing myself, me being in my 40s and more often than not working alongside people that are of a the similar age range. It's like once you get married and you have kids, it's like all of a sudden those opportunities to hang out after work, and or on the weekends, or go exploring, like those opportunities start to dwindle a bit. And like, so I think that that's another thing that kind of made like uh, us hanging out and developing our friendship like more of a precious memory to me, because it's just like, yeah, I've definitely been at other studios and hung out with people after work or whatever. But it's like as you get older, people get married and busy with other things with life and all that. So, um, but yeah, it becomes a more difficult. It's just like how people say like, oh, it's hard to make friends when you get older. It's like you really want to make your friends when you're in high school, college, and all that. But once you become a working professional, those opportunities become more and more rare, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you guys have definitely been the closest like art friends I've had. I mean, I think there's something to be said that when we were working at Ignition, it was kind of we were in the trenches a bit, like the art trenches, and then we created that bond over that, and there's very few people I can go back to, and it just feels like I can easily talk to you like it was, like how we used to work before. So it was you guys have always been like that group for me. And obviously you go on, you make a bunch more art friends, but I feel like kind of growing up together in a way, like it
Yeah.
is kind of like growing up
Mhm.
together. Um, and all of us having a somewhat similar experience of being like kind of like our first time being away from home and stuff. It's been like super vital to have you guys as friends. And it's just, easy talking
Yeah."
with you guys.
Also, I don't know if it's for this podcast, but like at one point or the other, we all it's like two of us are always in the same state.
Yeah.
but never all three. It was weird. It was like a shuffle, like a musical chair of like who's where. But then eventually, I think Mitch, you moved back to New Mexico, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
Ye-
now I'm here with Robin in Seattle.
Yeah, no, I wanted to bring that up too at some point because, like, yeah, it's really interesting. I think, yeah, we all started in Florida. I ended up, so Josh, you left first and you headed back to LA.
Yeah.
And then I left maybe like 6 months later and I headed back to the Bay Area. And Mitch, you stuck around in Florida for a while, but you ended up going to Atlanta to work with CCP.
Yes.
Um, but then Josh went to Seattle. I Mitch, you ended up going to the Bay Area.
Yes.
Josh ended up joining me at the job that I had in the Bay Area at Gree.
Oh wait, at that time, all three of us were in
Yeah.
SF, but then you left after like 2 weeks.
Wait, me? I left?
Yeah, you left like when I joined Greed. You left after like very fast, like very soon.
Was it to go to
And then
Canada?
and I
Okay.
hung out with Mitch more. Well, I mean, we all hung out together, but I remember hanging out with Mitch a lot when I was in SF. But
Okay.
that was my theory, man. When there's two of us, one person's got to move out of the state.
Well, oh, okay,
We're
wait.
always passing by each other all the time.
What makes it even worse is that, like, so I went to Canada and then, like, I ended up coming back to the Bay Area, but just as I got back, Mitch was moving to Seattle, and I ended up living like renting a place like a block away from where you were living in. What was it? What city were you living in the Bay Area, Mitch?
I was in San Bruno.
San Bruno. Yeah, right next to the mall, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah,
What? Wait, Mitch, did you move? When did you move out to Seattle? Because I thought I moved first.
It was 2018, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I moved first to Seattle for 343.
and then you.
Yes.
20,
Yes.
2014, and then Mitch joined me. Yeah,
Oh,
well,
okay.
not joined me, but he, you know,
You
he
guys were
didn't
in the
move
same
because
area.
of me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Oh, okay. I didn't want to spoil myself, but like, I was like wondering what was Mitch doing in the Bay Area? Who was he working for? I like it was driving me crazy. I didn't want to look at your LinkedIn. I just wanted to. I was hoping that I would just remember it, but I remember you were working for Kabam.
Command. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
which I worked at Kabam like a few years before you did. So yeah, we've just been kind of always missing each other. And then when I move up here, it's well, you'd already moved back to New Mexico like a few years before I ended up moving up here. But one day we're all gonna end up in the same place, I'm sure.
We're
yeah.
all gonna
And
end up in New Mexico, you guys. Come on.
I mean, look, and then I was at 343. I left, and then you were at 343 after me. It's just all like just so similar. The backgrounds. It's pretty crazy.
It's really funny too because I remember I came up to help you with your workshop, I think, Josh, and then
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
the the whole time that I was visiting. I mean, it's not like you were doing it many times, but a couple times you were like, "You should just move up here," and then like I was like, "Nah, that's never gonna happen." And then I ended up moving up here like a year and a half later or something like that. So yeah, someone is playing games, manipulating the situation for us. Um.
Yeah.
Oh, what were you gonna say, Josh?
Oh no, no, that's it. I agree. I'm agreeing.
You agree someone's
It's a
manipulating
the concept god.
the concept
Yeah,
god, just
yeah,
using us as marionette dolls. Okay. Uh. Yeah. No. And I think obviously it's funny because like Josh he actually lives like a 15-minute walk away from me, um
yeah.
probably like a 5-minute drive, and
We see each other pretty often,
yeah,
like at least once a month with drinking draws and then like some mutual friends events and stuff, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, well, I mean, uh, Mitch, what the hell? Why don't you just join us? I mean, we're all nice and cozy over here. You're burning up in New Mexico.
It's too late, man. I bought a house here. I'm here, man. I'm here for good.
We should just test that theory. If let's say Mitch or me, oh yeah, Robin or me move out, maybe Mitch would just back. Oh, I'm coming back.
Yeah, yeah, that'll tempt me.
he's just he's just waiting to get away from us. So is that what you're saying?
Well, no, it's not his choice. It just that the destiny will make him come back.
No, I think Mitch is screwing with us. I think he just doesn't want to live in the same state as us. It's like he got his fill when we're in Florida, got a little bit in the Bay Area, and now he's just like, I don't want to spend time with these
I mean,
guys.
come on.
Well, it's weird with remote work now. I mean, like now, you could, virtually live anywhere.
Right.
But and so like it just made sense for me. Like, I always had to like move. Obviously, working in the game industry, you tend to move a lot. And I was constantly moving, and we loved it at the time. Like we kind of liked staying in a place for a couple years and then moving somewhere else, and just kind of getting to experience all around the country. Uh, but now, like remote work, like it just kind of makes sense for me. Obviously, my family's here in New Mexico. My wife's family's here, and so it just made sense for us to move back. So,
Yeah,
love remote work.
dude, I've been remote since COVID too. It's like,
You-
so that's like what, like almost 7 years now, just remote.
Oh
It's
my
been
gosh.
crazy.
Wow. I mean, but hey, if you take it back to the beginning of this conversation, it's like I think with remote work, we probably wouldn't have become, as tight as we are. So,
Yeah,
you know, like I personally enjoy, like I love the idea of remote work, but at the same time, I do like sort of, you know, I feel like there's like a type of ex, mm, I guess experience that you get from like, being face to face and everything. And I think for the jobs I've had where I was working remote, it's like I don't really keep in touch with those people, unfortunately. Um, and nothing against them, but I think that's just like what happens when, proximity isn't even a factor. Um, but yeah, there's pros and
do you,
cons.
do you feel like that the whole COVID remote work, like that did contribute to your feeling of like, hey, you haven't been able to find a group this tight, for example, like because now a lot of people just work remote. You can't really have that tight connection or be in the trenches type of feeling.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, because it's like when I was working at striking distance, we had a concept room, and we all we're we weren't super close, but I think we had a healthy relationship with each other and all that. Um, but it's like once we went remote, it's like, yeah, like it was weird, just kind of instead of having meetings together within a room, all of a sudden we're just kind of boxed into little rectangles, and um, I don't know. I'm not, obviously I'm not against remote. I think that's just like there's a different dynamic that is found in doing things remote versus doing things in person. I mean, you guys, Josh, with your team, you guys sometimes meet up. I mean, usually it's for work stuff, right?
But a lot of those aren't concept artists. There's more
Oh,
like,
okay.
like art directors, environment artists, lighting artists, stuff like that. Um, but it it is interesting though. Like, you kind of in this podcast, you kind of mentioned like, hey, one of the things we want to talk about is like community, right? I do feel like having remote be like a thing now and was a bigger thing like a couple years ago. I wonder if that did like fracture the community a little bit. And now we're all having to like kind of learn how to get back into being an art community.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually that's a good segue into, I guess, like the community topic. Hey everyone, we just took a small break. But yeah, so right before Josh was asking about COVID having an impact on the art community. I I think so, but I think that there's a bigger. reason why the art community is maybe not as structured as it used to be, and I think it's because of the absence of art forms. Um, I don't know about you guys. Like, I really would like to hear your guys' opinions. But like to me, like art forms, like the sort of the back and forth of it, um, kind of like I felt like that was like the pinnacle of like art communities. Um, yeah, I'm curious what you guys have to say about that.
Oh man. I mean, conceptart.org was it for me. Um, I didn't actually go to CG Talk too much. I would check it every now and then. CG Talk definitely felt like there was um, a heavy 3D influence to it,
Yeah.
while concept art was definitely like geared obviously towards concept art. Um, and it was basically my homepage, you know, when when I first figured out about that place. And it was like I instantly knew I wanted to be a concept artist, and I would just go there all the time. And what was cool is it was just so um there wasn't a lot of people, and it was like some of the best artists in the world at the time were like posting on there. And it felt it felt like, you were seeing this amazing art being made that very few people kind of knew about. And everyone kind of like, it was almost like a lot of these artists kind of took on their own mythologies in a way. And a lot of people started idolizing them, and they became like mini celebrities. But I loved it. I mean, it was my go-to place.
Yeah. Josh, what about you?
Yeah, definitely. I started with conceptart.org too, and I think I believe I the reason like like I got the first job at Ignition was actually through like a job posting on conceptart.org, and then I think I remember this, but I don't know if it's correct. But I believe I might have messaged or talked to Mitch on conceptart.org before I joined the company too. But I might have forgot about it. But I think we might have. Yeah, just to kind of like just like
Probably.
maybe check it or something. Be like, hey, how's this company? Or I am joining or something, right?
Right.
But I remember conceptart.org, like they used to have like everyone had their sketchbook section, and that was like my favorite part of the forum because you can kind of see everyone's progress, day to day progress, and leave feedback, give comments, like encourage each other. And so I definitely remember that. And then I believe there was like a speed painting form like section too, so that I always participate in that too.
Yeah, no, I think yeah, like all those features, it's like, nothing against ArtStation or other, current day art communities, but there isn't much in terms of the, I guess, like the interaction. Like there is interaction in terms of like, like something like Discord is like just chatting about stuff, but I think that, you know, there isn't really, it feels like there isn't much of a desire to kind of grow, at least in a way where you're kind of like offering a work in progress and inviting feedback. Um, to me, it's like that's. I think that like not having that be such a something that's not present nowadays, it kind of makes me feel like we're all sort of isolated, and it makes me also feel like maybe it's in some cases it might be preventing us from growing. And um, I think the beauty of sites like conceptart.org or even like Sijun, they had a huge speed painting thread, and you'd see like folks like David Levy and Spart and a bunch of guys that are just like amazing, and being able to see them sort of like what they're able to do. Well, I guess like what their definition of speed painting is, and then you get to throw your stuff in there at the same time, and we get to applaud each other's work. Um, I just don't really see much of that, and even like in ArtStation, once again, it's like I go to ArtStation every day. I love liking and creating my little folders of images, categorizing them and all that. But it's like there isn't really you feel a little awkward throwing in feedback in the comment section because everyone's kind of posting their final piece, right? Um,
Yeah.
and it's like I'm not sure if that adds or subtracts from a community, but I feel like maybe like nowadays, I feel like it's more about like here's my portfolio, come take a look at it, and it's not so much like hey, this is something I'm working on. I know I'm not the best artist out there, but I'd love to be, and I'd love to grow. And I'd love to make this piece like really awesome. Um, but
Yeah.
I just feel like there's less of that.
Yeah,
I,
it definitely nowadays feel it kind of feels like everything nowadays is a bit of a like a showcase, like you're showing off the work that you did. And back then in concept art, it was like people were asking for feedback and critiques all the time, and it really definitely was that kind of like a smaller, tight-knit community, and people you would get like, some really big famous artist or pro at the time who would go in and give you some amazing feedback. I mean, I got some of the best feedback I'd ever gotten in that forum. To this day, I still remember some of it. Like a big name artist would go in and tell me like, "Hey, quit focusing on rendering so much. Like, focus on drawing more so. Like, this is what's gonna get you better at rendering."
Mm.
And I still think about that today. And versus nowadays where everything is just more, it feels like, here's the thing I did. Let me showcase it. Maybe there's forums or communities where people are getting feedback, and maybe I just don't see it anymore. Um, but it definitely has changed. Definitely doesn't feel the same way. I don't feel part of a bigger community like that.
I wonder if it's also just like the way the media is like consumed. You know, now a lot of people use like uh, Instagram or Twitter or to kind of share their artwork and have the conversation on there.
Mm.
And then there's also like I know a lot of people use like Discords. They have like Discord channels where that would be like their art community now, or Twitch streaming. So I feel like now there's just so many like different ways to share your art. And some of these, like, if you look at like Twitch or you look at like Discord, a lot of people show their work in progress, right? Or
Mm.
their process as they're working on something. But then it does go back to, again, I think why conceptart.org was like so successful at these forums is because it was like the go-to place for all of that, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now I think everything's just so separated.
Yeah, and I think it makes it a little bit trickier to sort of build out a community or build out your social circle when the I guess like the level of interaction that we've kind of become used to is very binary, right? It's like you like or you just skip past it. And I think also it's just as you were saying, Mitch, like the showcase aspect, right? It's like it makes me feel. I think one thing that I really appreciate, just like on a universal level, is vulnerability. And I think that when someone's opening up and saying like, "Hey, like I'm working on this. What do you think?" It kind of makes it seem like a more intimate interaction. It makes it feel like you're actually building. Maybe it's not friendship, but at least there is some communication that's happening. And I'm one of those people that go through Instagram and like posts and stuff like that and rarely leaves comments. So, I'm not. I guess I'm a bit of a hypocrite, but it's I guess it's kind of sad to see that like that's just kind of become. I don't want to say sad. I mean, maybe this is just sort of the evolution of like our communities, but I feel less uh, part of our community nowadays than back when I guess you know sites like conceptart.org or Sijun. Like I wouldn't even have to meet the people in person. It's just like being able to kind of post stuff, you know, in the amidst like other artists and stuff like that. It's like that in itself made me feel like okay, like the fact that they responded or whatever, it makes me feel like a little bit of recognition or feel like I'm not just like posting things and just being ignored or something like that. But maybe I'm just seeking attention.
I wonder if we're just getting old. Like all the
It's
cool
possible.
kids are, we're just not as in tune with some of that stuff. I don't. I'm just wondering.
We are forever young. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know,
I
man.
feel
I,
like
I I feel like I'm old now. Like I feel old.
He always says that.
building your bones. Yeah, well, you know what's actually I find really cool about concept art too, the conceptart.org was how I feel like it was a like a starting point for what the taste and look of concept art would be in modern, like, today now. Like, you would go to a place like DeviantArt, and it didn't really resonate with me because, the things that were very popular there weren't like the type of things I wanted to draw. Same with CG Talk. It wasn't, I wasn't really into a lot of like 3D, and I didn't see a whole lot of illustration stuff over there. But it was like concept art was like starting to develop a specific look that I feel like we still see nowadays. Now, and I do think that everyone at the time like actually had a very unique look to their work. Like we still know certain people who they had their unique style, and now a lot of people over time have kind of adopted that style. Um, but it was like, the cutting edge of art. It was like pushing the envelope of, at least to me, and it was the only community I knew of where it was doing something like that. That's why it always felt so exciting for me to go there and see new art.
Truth be told, it's we're part of like some discords, the three of us, with larger groups, and they do have like an art section. Sometimes I want to throw out my stuff in there to kind of like say, hey, what do you guys think? But like, because no one else does it, it makes me feel like, oh, maybe I'll just keep that to myself and just, you know, uh, I don't know. I I wonder if it is an age thing where it's just like, yeah, like maybe you don't see that very often because maybe people have grown more confident in terms of like, uh, or their intuition in terms of like, what is a successful piece has grown to the point where they don't feel the need to, be asking other people like, hey, what do you think? Like, I don't know. Like, I, that's definitely a question that I had written down was like, where do you guys go for your feedback? I mean, or is this something where you're just kind of like, no, like I'm, I know exactly what I want to do with this personal piece, and I don't need to bother anyone about it, or I don't need to post it online. Like, how do you guys go about that?
I mean,
Yeah,
I
it's like,
don't
oh, go
go
ahead.
for it, Josh.
Uh, um, yeah, it's interesting. I think what you said is probably has a lot of like truth to why we don't seek that feedback now. Because like when we're starting our concept art, we're very new. We're still learning and developing our tastes and our skills. So I think it makes sense to like just asking for feedback, and because we want to know how to get better, right? And I think like you said, as I get older, I think for me at least, the idea of like needing to ask for feedback on rendering, or like if a specific composition is correct, I think at least for my personal work, it's less important to do that, because like if anything, like I'll ask for, if I'm working on a personal project, what I would ask for is maybe what I want to know from my friends is like, hey, is this a cool idea? Like, do you think this is like something that is really unique or something, right? And so I think that's when I would ask for feedback instead of just like, you know, knowing how to draw better, I guess. So,
Hmm.
What about you, Mitch?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't do a whole lot of seeking feedback these days. Um, I mean, like so I feel like conceptart.org at least was like a hub where you would get a lot of professionals that could look at your work. And nowadays, everything is so scattered across, I mean, it could be like, certain discords or YouTube channels, or, someone or Instagram. And I'm sure there's all these communities. There's probably more communities than ever before. But because it's so scattered, you don't have that concentration of
Yeah.
people looking at your work, and especially like, really experienced artists looking at your work. And so yeah, I don't and me personally, like nowadays, I mean, it was obviously different back then. It was important to get feedback, but I do feel like as you grow as an artist, there's a certain point where you do have to like start trusting your own intuition, and you almost my whole first part of the career was like taking a bunch of feedback and learning so much, from every angle and from all different people, that at a certain point you also need to then like start just trusting yourself, like
Mm.
what you do. And so I feel more at that point, in my career, where I just want to, like, even for better or worse, like even if it's bad, I want it to be like 100% me. And so that's why I would say I don't seek as much feedback these days.
Yeah. I
Yeah, at a certain point, it's like Mitch will be the one, or myself, or you, Robin, will be the one to get advice and feedback to someone that's like a newer to the industry, right?
hmm. Yeah, we grow as artists when we grow more confident, or at least like, we've gone through the development process of multiple projects, so we kind of know the ins and outs. And yeah, I think like the thing that I was like thinking of is, I don't want to dive into too many details about this, but like, I did send you guys like a pretty big package to, take a look at some time ago, a few months back. And I it's one of those things where I was just like, this seems cool in my head. I think this is good, and I think this is I think people would like this. But this is something where I'm trying to do something different from what I would do at, like, a 9 to 5 job. I'm really trying to, I guess it is a passion project, right? But and you would think that with it being a passion project, that like I could just kind of, that I won't really need any feedback, right? It's just I'm gonna follow my heart or whatever. But I was just like, like I'm investing so much of myself into this. No one's getting hurt if I'm gonna just, tap them on the shoulder and ask like, hey, like, can you guys give me like sort of a gut check on this? Make sure that I'm not doing things backwards. I don't know. Maybe it's just my insecurities or something like that. I appreciate when people can respond to me being vulnerable in a vulnerable way, or an honest way. But yeah, I don't yet feel like I'm personally at that point in my artistic journey of just kind of being like always being able to make those decisions on my own. Like I feel like sometimes I need to kind of, was it, check my blind spots, because I feel like sometimes I do have blind spots. Um, and also the fact that I'm reaching out to you guys, it just shows like, oh yeah, I trust these guys. I feel like they'll be honest, and they have a good sense of, what's aesthetically pleasing, what's cool, all that stuff. But I don't know. I do feel like I'm in the minority when it comes to, people like us that have been in the industry for a while.
Yeah, I think it's important to have people you trust to like get that feedback. And um it's like what you're doing is, to me, feels like 100% you, like. And it's hard to even give any kind of feedback, like, maybe just small things of like, oh, maybe this didn't make quite sense to me or whatever. But as far as like any kind of creative choices, it's like, at this point, I want to just see what Robin makes, like. There's
Yeah,
no.
dude, that's exactly what I told him too. I was like, your project is super cool, and same thing as Mitch. I was like, hey, just show me more, because to me, I even told you like, if to give a real feedback, I need to see like a more like your resolved thoughts, like
Mm-hmm.
all your ideas getting laid out. And then, I think the only thing I said was like, hey, like maybe you have too many of like frames to explain certain things. That was my main feedback to you. But like otherwise, like the world building, the design, the story, I was like, that's all cool, really cool. I just want to see more of, to see. And then I think once it's more fleshed out, I feel like as friends we can go and go like, you think this is actually good or not, right? Like,
Mm,
so yeah.
yeah, I think it's also I was kind of just thinking to myself like if conceptart.org, or like art forums was still a thing nowadays, it's like would I share that? Would I share what I shared with you guys, would I share with the general public? And I think that like there's I think the answer that I sort of landed on was no. But I think that's only because like I'm holding this project like pretty close to the chest. Like there's a lot of things that I just don't want to share at this moment. But yeah, like maybe that's another thing. It's like I know a lot of people that are just working on personal projects, and I feel like maybe they're keeping a lot of that close to their chest, and maybe that's what makes them kind of not want to throw it out there and ask people for feedback because it's kind of like, you know, I don't
Did
want.
you Yeah, like for conceptart.org, do you guys feel like now I can't but I feel like just from my memory, a lot of the stuff I've seen, like there wasn't a lot of like big personal projects, right? Like it felt like more like a lot of like a single image or like a topic we had picked and then people would kind of do art on it or like a sketchbook. It wasn't like it was never like someone actually like showing like, hey, if they're making a board game, they're literally showing all the progress. I don't believe I've seen that on concept art or not that often.
Yeah, I don't remember anything like that. I think concept art was still a fairly, at least more modern concept art was a fairly new thing that people were still just like, trying to make cool images instead of thinking about like a grander project. So
Yeah. I almost felt like concept art was more of like almost like a testing ground or like a form where people like sharpen their skills and then
yeah,
they went
definitely.
on to do other bigger things for sure. That's what I kind of felt like. Yeah.
The what I would term that is a safe space. It's a place for us to sort of like spar with ourselves and with each other, and but at the same time we're not at each other's throats, and if anything we're doing the opposite. We're kind of becoming more familiar with each other's work. um I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great like term for it because like if you think about it, I mean work is
Oh.
not super glamorous, but it's like you kind of train yourself outside and practice. So like when you
Mm.
do the work in a studio with like a deadline or something important, you have a more likely chance of success, and so I think it's like it's definitely like if you fail or you're not getting something or you mess up on a drawing in your posting of concept art, it's like it's a safe space, right?
Yeah,
People give you feedback and you learn to fix it.
I think there's also like a level of accountability that comes with that too, right? It's like if for the sketchbook aspect of conceptart.org, or like the feedback that someone might be posting, it's like, yeah, it's like someone is providing input for the sake of being helpful, and that is hopefully enough of a carrot on the stick to keep you going, and also try out different things just for the sake of taking that person's feedback.
Yeah, it was funny because like I felt like it was a place also where you learned, even if a lot of it was not particularly true, but you learned like what it took to be a concept artist in a way. Like, it was kind of at the time where everyone was like, you need to draw 12 hours a day. Like you
Mhm.
need
I
to,
remember that.
right? Like it was everyone. And I mean, it was good in the sense of like, hey, you got to take this seriously. Like if you want to be
Yeah.
really good, you got to take this very seriously. And it was good information. Obviously it wasn't the healthiest information, but it was kind of, what it took to get really good at something. And so that helped me a lot in understanding like how my path forward was going to look like and like what it was going to take. And you would get people who would, they would just be like, why is this artist so good? Well, they're so good because they study the old masters. And that's not something that you would initially, and maybe you wouldn't think to do that, right? Like you would almost just want to always study concept art and stuff. But it was like there was this um kind of thing of feedback where it was just like people, would tell you, study the old masters, draw 12 hours a day, like focus on drawing. It was like really good information back then that still to this day is like a lot of the information I'll give to students. And um, and I don't see that maybe as much anymore. I mean, I do see it. I see it on YouTube videos. I see people getting into it. But it was a great place to start and to learn that right off the bat.
Yeah, it's because I think that advice like I got from my time at art school, but I think that is just like maybe there's just sort of like a rebellious side to me where I'm just like, these guys, I don't know what they're talking about. But like when I hear, I guess like feedback from concept artists, while I'm in the process of like developing my portfolio and stuff like that, it's like I feel more at ease and kind of like, oh, okay, like this advice seems trustworthy. I guess I don't know. I actually like Josh. I guess you're the X factor, but it's like Mitch. I'm sure you could relate. Where it's like when we were going to school for art, no concept artists to be found, right?
Right.
Yeah, and so it's just one of those things where it's like
Wait,
the,
what do you mean?
Yeah.
I
Let
met.
me. Oh, go ahead.
Wait, I thought Mitch is the only X factor because he didn't go to art school,
no, he did go to art
except
school.
community
No, I
college, I
didn't.
think.
I
Well,
didn't
I
go to art
I
school.
mean the art program that you attended.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was like a typical. So yeah, let me qualify like what I was just saying. Like actually, was in, I not having gone to like any kind of art college. It was amazing to hear information like that on a forum,
Mm,
because obviously the kind of more community college that I was going to, it was all geared towards like figure drawing, kind of barely some figure drawing, and it was a lot of like more abstract art and just more about how to like express yourself. It was kind of a more just like a typical art program, and there wasn't any idea about illustration or concept art or anything like that. So a lot of the stuff I was making was kind of looked at as like kind of weird. People didn't really understand it.
well, okay.
Um,
Okay, so the reason why I said you're the X Factor, Josh, is because like my experience at the Academy of Art was kind of similar to Mitch's, where it's like I
Really?
I wasn't really taught by any concept artists. Like I did get the illustration side of things, and I did take a few animation courses, so I guess like we're sort of on a gradient, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's like I felt like okay, like when I was sharing my stuff on art forums, I felt like the feedback I was getting was more uh, relative to what I was doing, whereas I felt like any concept art I did at art school, I I don't really think the feedback they gave me
Mm.
was very helpful. I had to
I'm
restart my
actually,
portfolio after I graduated.
yeah.
What were you gonna say, Josh? Sorry.
No, I think yeah. It's interesting because like my first 2 semesters or 3 semesters, I know 4 semesters actually. My first 4 semesters at Art Center is through the illustration program. So I didn't have any concept art teacher. I study a lot of fine art, so I did a lot of figure painting, a lot of landscape painting, and like I would do that like 7 days a week. So I think I already had like I feel like I was pretty comfortable with like traditional like landscape and uh, portrait paintings and stuff. But it wasn't until the last 2 semester I was starting to do more concept art classes, and we did have concept art teachers. But I will say, if you like ask anyone from my generation, even a lot of us felt like we didn't really even learn that much in the art center. We learned how to work hard and have that work ethic, but then a lot of the learning is actually outside of art center from other artists and online forums too. Yeah.
I just remember whenever I was at a studio and we received applicants from Art Center, it would always be like, ooh, let's see, let's take a look.
That's interesting because the school you went to, that's where literally where the people that started concept art.org is, right?
Yeah, Academy of
A lot
Art.
of people, yeah, Academy, a lot of conceptart.org like big shots were actually from Academy of Arts too, or they're in that area. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And by the way, like I don't want to uh, make it sound like I didn't get anything out of my time at the Academy of Art. Like I learned the foundations there, and they're really important to me. I think it's just it was a moment in time where not many art schools for provided courses or curriculum for
Yeah.
concept art. So I know that they do now, and one of my buddies, he's a teacher there, so I know that there's a greater emphasis now. But it's one of those things where, yeah, because I couldn't really get as much as I wish I did from school. I'm grateful for there being art communities where I could learn from others. So yeah, Mitch, you were gonna
Yeah,
say
I
something?
agree.
Oh.
Okay.
I was gonna. Oh, I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't remember what I was gonna say.
I was gonna say like yeah, like art schools in general has a tendency to like produce a lot of similar looking portfolios. Not always, right? There's always people that do their own stuff and don't follow the trend at an art school. And I always like to think of like if you go to like academy or you go to like art center, you're kind of in this bubble. And so like like you have mentioned like oh if you see some like, art center portfolio, a lot of the times you can kind of see like oh like this person's probably from art center because of the way it looks. But I know like when I first started like coming out of art center, I was like, oh yeah, my portfolio. I don't know what people mean when they say like my portfolio looks like art center, but like as I been in the industry more, as I met more people from different backgrounds, I was like, oh wow, we do live in a bubble. And so it's like for me, it was actually nice. Like I definitely use like conceptart.org and then even like I think back then when CG Hub was around ArtStation, I always look at other artists because I knew like I can't just compare myself to the people in my school. I have to compare it to like the whole industry to see what how it's holding up basically.
Yeah, I think that like with you mentioning CG Hub and ArtStation, it's like I did want to sort of like touch on like the sort of, I don't even want to say it's the evolution, but I guess sort of how things sort of progressed, where we had art forums and they were very prevalent and popular, and there would be workshops, and I do want to touch upon workshops in a bit. But eventually we sort of transitioning into CG Hub, and that was very popular for a while, and then it shut down, and then ArtStation came around. And as I was kind of in preparation for this call, I was like kind of writing down a list of like forums and art communities, and then I just thought about DeviantArt for a moment, and then I was thinking, wait a second, DeviantArt. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the format of that is actually more like CG Hub and ArtStation than it is to an art form, because they would have their gallery. Actually, have like a 2007 version of DeviantArt here, but I mean, it's. Oh wait, sorry. This is today's version. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is from July 2026. But it's kind of the same thing, where it's newest, popular, daily highlights and all that. It actually really surprised me of just you know the thing that we've grown so used to and comfortable with, ArtStation. There was sort of a proto ArtStation out here, and obviously DeviantArt's been successful for a very very long time, um, but yeah, it's interesting that we've I don't want to say we, but I guess the art community has kind of totally embraced this idea of, once again, to use the term that Mitch used, it's like a showcase site. And I feel like there are efforts to kind of bring back that community and social aspect of what was found back in the concept artwork days. Obviously they had their massive black workshops, and they would host that all over the place. There was Seattle, San Francisco, I think they went to New Zealand once, Prague, um, but those kind of died out, and then there were smaller efforts that kind of came up. Like I remember we did the Future Poly one in Seattle. I think that was my first time visiting Seattle. Um, and then Josh, you had your ideation workshop, and yeah, it's just interesting to see. Now we have something like Lightbox, right, which is actually, I've heard, very successful. Um, but those are just kind of annual events, um, and I don't know if that's too much or too little, but it seems like it's a bit of a remedy to the absence of having um, a daily community to be able to check in on whenever you feel like. But I don't know, Josh, like you did the ideation workshop. What was your intent with that?
That would just, I mean, sounds a little bit selfish, but that workshop was really just like a workshop for like the people that like contributed to the school, attended the school, the workshop academy, and like it was like a more of like, hey, like it would be cool if we just celebrate and like have a bunch of artists come and do a workshop. Like it actually wasn't even like my whole intent of that wasn't even about just like, oh, I'm gonna start like something like Lightbox or something like that. It was just really just like, hey, like, you know, uh, like we've been teaching a lot of students here, a lot of, like we have a community in Seattle, our community, and so like it's just something to do. Yeah.
That doesn't sound selfish at all. That sounds like opposite. That sounds selfless.
No, no, I mean selfish in terms of like for like it was the main goal was for the people at the school. I wasn't even thinking about like the whole
Oh,
internet
outside. Oh,
concept art
okay.
community. Yeah,
Yeah, got it.
yeah. So yeah, it was a very specific workshop, just like to be honest, for the people that were in Seattle. If people want to travel to Seattle, that's great, but it wasn't like I wasn't trying or expecting people to flock to Seattle, like a Lightbox, for example.
Um, no, I was because you were kind of talking about just the forums, and I feel like, I mean, back in our day, obviously, we sound this is where we sound like old men. Back in our day, we had the forums, and they would have amazing feedback on these forums. But I look nowadays, and there's so much great information everywhere now. Like, you could just go on a ton of YouTube videos, and there's generally really good information. Not all of them are great, but there's quite a few that have really good information. And obviously, we're always seeing artists pop up all the time who are really good, like amazing, and they're very young. So obviously, they're getting the quality um, that we felt like we were getting back then. There's so many workshops, there's so many like classes and mentorships and all this stuff, unbelievable amounts of information than what we had at the time. And so obviously you didn't get necessarily that more personal, I guess, relationship with people, and knowing who very specific people were like on the forums, and becoming friends with them. But obviously the wealth of information is more so than it's ever been,
Mm.
and it's producing artists that are insane nowadays. So I don't know. I mean, I don't, maybe it's like not as important to have that, like a forum type community, because you can get the information everywhere, even though it was nice to have that, right?
I mean, I do think like if you look at like some discords, there are very like artist focused discords where people are getting feedbacks and like collaborating and encouraging each other on their progress. Like I have been on a couple like like Workshop Guy has one, Warrior Paint Group has a really big one. Paul Richards even has like one he started where people can join and get feedback and share work. I I wonder if just like the way it's being done is a little bit different now, and you know,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think there is a wealth of information, and especially I feel like concept artists, most have already sort of transitioned into 3D, but there's still quite a few people that are making that transition into Blender or plasticity. And yeah, it's good that there are those resources. um I don't know. I think that Josh, I remember sitting in on some of your classes for the Workshop Academy, and I think maybe it was just because I think one of the classes, it was the last day and all that, so maybe there was like a little bit of an atmosphere there. But it was kind of nice to see people interacting with each other and kind of building a familiarity, right? Because you guys are taking, like, is it a semester or a quarter or how?
It was a semester. Yeah, three semesters.
Yeah, so it's they've grown familiar with each other's projects. They're seeing growth, within themselves and within each other. Um, so it's, I'm not trying to um, I'm not trying to say what you had mentioned, Mitch, about uh, resources online, but I think that there is that sort of community aspect that I feel is can sometimes be missing in Discord. I think that is an option for sure. I think that maybe I'm trying to. This might sound wrong, and I might edit it out. But uh, I think when you're going to a website, if you're going to concept.org and you're clicking on Josh Kao's sketchbook, there is that sort of intentionality of sort of I want to see what Josh is doing, and if there's something that I can provide as feedback, I'm going to throw it in there. Whereas I feel like, and this is where I might be wrong, but I feel like Discord is a bit more of a passive experience because it's something that you always have opened up on your computer and you receive notifications left and right, and there's thousands and thousands of people in Warrior Painter Academy, or I forget the name of it, but there's probably not as much familiarity with like who's posting. And I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe my point is that it's a bit more of a passive experience, especially for I have tons of Discord servers that I'm a part of, and it's hard to keep track. So it's for me to jump back into one and to like say like, hey, I'm gonna put some feedback here. It's very rare because it's not something that I'm intentionally going in and thinking like, oh, I want to see what this person posted and I want to offer up some feedback. I don't know. I might sound weird and wrong. So
Yeah, I haven't really looked into a lot of the Discord, um, like, art feedback groups, so I don't really know what goes on in there. Um, it's also just kind of overwhelming too, I mean, like, obviously with a forum, it was very concentrated. And also there wasn't as many concept artists as there are nowadays, right?
right.
There very
That's true.
few.
Yeah.
And so nowadays it's like, I mean, there's so many amazing artists, and it's overwhelming to like, I forget about artists, like artists that I followed a long time ago who are amazing, and I forget about them because there's a whole nother hundreds of artists, amazing artists that I'm also following, and so can't
Yeah.
keep up with it all.
That that is true. I'm always surprised as to like, when we started doing the concept art thing, it didn't feel like there were too many of us, but now there's a lot, and also there's only so many jobs that can go around, and everyone's going for something different. So yeah, it has grown into a bigger beast. Sorry, I'm looking
Yeah, I
like
mean, like, you see some of these kind of concept art or illustration YouTubers, and they'll have millions of subscribers, and that just seems like so unheard of. I mean,
But I think I don't know if I know you had wanted to like kind of talk about some of this stuff early on with the questions, Robin. But like I do think with like the art scene, the concept scene maturing, and like like you said, the YouTubers getting millions of views and followers and subscribers, I do feel like there is a more avenue to like make a living,
mm,
by doing art than
sure.
before, I would say. Yeah.
yeah, there are a lot more resources. You could pretty much get anything done, thanks to the internet. Um, yeah, so doing Patreons and YouTube and Etsy stores, print shops. There's a lot of things, um, but yeah, I think I'm thinking about going to Lightbox this year, and I'm probably the thing that I'll be most interested in actually checking out there is probably the artist alley, just because I want to be exposed to more artists. I think I don't always trust the algorithm on like Instagram or ArtStation. sometimes it's throwing me stuff that I'm just, maybe not as interested in. But I think there's something about like there's that tangibility or just sort of, face to face interaction of kind of like walking past someone's booth and kind of like checking out their stuff that I really miss. It's kind of just like, the whole forum thing too, where it's just like, yeah, there's something about intentionally saying, I'm going to check out this person's work, instead of trusting an algorithm to just kind of populate, your feed. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that pops up that I really like, but also I just kind of, maybe it's the randomness of it that kind of bothers me a bit. Um, I don't know. I'm sure there's a setting I could change.
Yeah, I feel that.
Also, oh, sorry. I thought you were. Yeah,
Go for it, Josh.
I keep cutting you off, man. So sorry.
No, you're good. Go for it.
I was gonna say Artist Alley at Lightbox is pretty cool. Like whenever I go, that I spend the most time in Artist Alley.
I've actually haven't been to Lightbox yet.
Dude, you gotta go to one at least.
Let's go this year. Let's go.
Maybe we will. I don't know when. I feel like it always sneaks up on me. Like before you know it, it's like it's already here, and then I
just leave your babies at home, and you and Amy can go to Lightbox.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We have the grandparents here now. We can have the grandparents watch them. So and then Amy and I will go. So
there you go.
Yeah, maybe so. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
I hear like everyone loves it. I always hear about people just loving it. So it'd be nice to go and check it out.
Dude, for me, it's like an art center reunion when I go back. It's like it's in
Pasadena.
So literally, I'm just the one I went to. You just walk down the street and you just keep seeing people. It's like it's and
yeah, and that's what's cool. Like that's really why I want to go. Is like just to go see all the old friends and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. Let's talk about it some more. Let's peer pressure Mitch. Actually, I think we need to peer pressure Josh a little tue, right? You're not 100% about going this year, huh?
I already went once, so.
Hey, come on.
I mean, I guess I could, but I'll see. It's tiring, and like you said, I'm old, man. Like we're all old. It's a wild weekend at Lightbox just tires you out now, or tires me out.
It doesn't need to be wild.
No, I'm joking. It doesn't get wild there. I was just kidding.
It always gets wild with Josh.
Yeah, there's some truth to that.
What?
Let's see. I should have probably asked this earlier, but how did you guys first get exposed to art forums?
Man, I can go first. So I remember a brief story. I took community college or state college, right? And I took art classes there. And at that time, I was like, oh, I want to do like the work that's in Star Wars. That book, that art book, episode 1 art book. That was when I was like, okay, let me look up these artists and like start searching, right? And I think the first person I saw was like, it was like Team GT. It was like the Francis. I forgot his last name.
Oh, Francis Tsai.
Yeah, Francis Tsai. So like,
okay.
I think I clicked on his work, and somehow his work led into like, the conceptart.org website, and so that's how I found out about conceptart.org. Yeah.
Mitch, how about you?
Yeah. Gosh. I think my parents actually took us to Disney World, and that's where I also got one of the Star Wars concept art books. And I saw like I don't remember for which episode it was, but it had a lot of the Ian McCaig work in there, and I'm forgetting Eric like Tiemann's, and when I saw that stuff, I was like, man, this stuff is amazing. And I didn't even know what concept art was at that point, but it amazed me so much that I think I would, I probably at some point just Googled concept art, and conceptart.org popped up.
Yeah.
And then, once I saw that, it was all over. I was like, it was almost like I knew. I was like, this is what I'm going to be. Like, I need to be a concept artist. It was all over.
Wow. Eric Tiemens is a name I have not heard in a very long time. Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude,
Wait,
those
how?
guys
What
are
about you,
so good.
Robin?
Uh, I don't have as vivid of a memory, but I'm sure how it went was because I think CG Talk was probably the first website that art form that I signed up for, and I think the reason why was um I think I was like pirating software. Like, and I was just like, oh, like, now that I have this pirated version of whatever, I could go into the forums and learn more about it or something like that. But then, as you guys mentioned, CG Talk was a bit more focused on the 3D side. So I somehow found my way. I think actually the first art form I guess the next art form I moved on to was Ipu, Ipu.com. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with that, but it's much more like 2D focused, like graphic design, concept art, illustration, um, and then from there I found my way over to conceptart.org. Um, but
Wait, so you got into concept art because you're trying to pirate some software?
No, 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 no. CG Talk, cgtalk.com. Like I got into that forum because I was like looking. I think it's Lightwave. Lightwave was like the first 3D software
Oh,
that I kind of
okay.
touched, and so I was like, okay, I have it. Now what am I supposed to do with it? And I think the reason why I got Lightwave because I heard Titanic, like the CG effects that they use was done in Lightwave. So I was just like,
I see.
oh, I could do that too. Um,
Wow.
Like,
But it's interesting. Like you could have been like a VFX artist or something instead.
I do have like a hidden, not hidden, but I do have like fondness for a lot of things, such as like VFX and everything. So yeah, I think I've always had like a curiosity about 3D software, so that's probably why I pirated it. But I probably I probably made like a cylinder, and then that's about it. But
Back then, that's way ahead though. Like, cause when I was in art school, they were still learning how to use like SketchUp. That was the 3D
ooh,
program they used. Yeah.
SketchUp
it
was,
was awesome.
yeah, it was free, and it was just so easy to use, but you'd always end up with something that's like, extremely primitive.
It's very limited in what it
Yeah.
can do.
I've seen
I
some.
almost like prefer that, like in a way. Like I know Blender, like sometimes you'll make like a 3D model and you're almost like too precious with it.
Hmm.
I almost would prefer the primitiveness of SketchUp nowadays.
Like as a basis to paint on top of or something, or
Yeah,
yeah,
right, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I, I, I think when it comes to just like, production, like production art, like that is probably the best way to go. If you've got a tight deadline, just build something that solves all your perspective and kind of go over it in Photoshop unless they actually need you to build, like, deliver a proxy model or something like that. But yeah. Yeah, so we've talked a lot about art communities. We kind of have a sense of where it's at right now. Where do you guys think things will be in 5 years? Do you feel like this is kind of how things are likely going to remain, or do you feel like there's going to be a craving for more interactions? Like maybe Lightbox becomes almost like a PAX thing, right? Where they have one on the West Coast and one on the East Coast, so they make it easier for people. Or how do you guys feel our communities are going to be like in the future?
Kind of hard to say now. Um, just obviously with AI and all that, and I wonder how many people it'll turn off from pursuing art.
Mm,
Because I do, I do see that a lot. People are just very worried about, and obviously we have kind of had no idea what's going to happen with AI and like, you know, how it'll be utilized in our field. Um, I'm optimistic that like I don't think it will be used as much as people think it'll be used, but I truly don't really
Yeah.
know. So
I mean, yeah, I'm not like, this is just me theorizing some stuff and like not really speaking for like the whole industry, right? But it is very possible, like, back then we talked about conceptart.org and all these websites, you could get feedback on like certain stuff, like how to render, composition, color theory, all that, right? I wonder with the AI if people use it more, or even just like how the industry evolves. Maybe maybe concept art is not really about learning how to render or how to set up a composition. Maybe it's more just about how to refine your taste and your ideas. So I could see that being a little bit different, because then you wouldn't need to like have a sketchbook, right? My optimal, like, positive outlook on this is maybe 5 years later, it's easier for people to start their own projects, right? With the help of all the tools that's out there. And then instead of like having like everyone have like a sketchbook, let's say on conceptart.org, you're actually having like, hey, can you take a look at my short animation, or can you look at my like indie game that I just made with a couple people, right? I think maybe it's more of that. It's kind of like how YouTube, it really revolutionized how we consume media, right? Before, you would have to go through the big movie studios, the TV studios, to get a show for people to watch. Now someone can just have like, couple $100 worth of camera equipment and then do a whole travel show and make a living off of that. So, yeah, I don't know.
I think for what you were saying about like sharing the progress of a project that you're working on, like I actually see some of that in the Discord I'm part of. It's like it's splintered off from the Seattle Indies Discord group. It's a smaller one right now, but yeah, they have like threaded sections for everyone's personal project. I have one there for Dodgebrush podcast, where I just kind of post updated episodes. But there's other people that are just kind of like, you could look through, from beginning up till now, of just like their indie game and kind of like all the developments that they've been making. But yeah, I I'm curious. I hadn't factored in AI, so it's interesting that you guys are bringing that up. But I hope that because of AI, that kind of leads to, it's almost like people are, I guess, building out that community sort of to rebel against AI, right? It's like there's a stronger desire to do something handcrafted, or do, more like, drink and draws or whatever, to kind of uh, find some solidarity, and to also kind of like show that, hey, we still appreciate art, and we don't want AI to kind of take anything away from that. And I guess the impact that makes on our culture. Um, One thing that I wanted to point out also, another community that's kind of spun up in the last few years, is SavePoint. That's something that we have in Seattle. And I mean, Josh, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but I think it was kind of built up because of some of the layoffs that took place at Microsoft a few years ago. Um,
I think it's like the whole industry.
oh,
Like,
okay.
yeah, it wasn't just Microsoft, but it's a lot of Microsoft people because of the location of it being in Redmond or Woodinville.
Yeah. So it's nice to have that. And I do see that there are opportunities to provide feedback with events like that, because people are shopping their portfolios around, and they are getting feedback from, art directors or other experienced artists, and being able to kind of provide some instruction. It's not so much a in progress feedback, but it's more like it's guidance nonetheless. I mean, that I had that happen to me at GDC the first time I went, with my Academy of Art portfolio, and they were just kind of like, this good work, but it's not concept art. And I was just like, oh, okay. um, but yeah, it's thankfully there are still those kind of smaller, I don't want to say smaller, but there are those communities out there that kind of are in the spirit of making sure that we're elevating each other and keeping each other accountable, and providing help where we can. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like most artists are pretty open to even giving feedback, right? Like, if someone hits me up on like Instagram or email, I try my best to still, reply to it. Obviously, I'm not like a like super like big shot concept artist. I if if I was to get like 1,000 emails, then yeah, I probably can't respond to it. But I feel like most artists, it's worth like for people to just write them a message or be like, hey, can you review this thing I'm working on, or on a forum or whatever, like on a Discord or Instagram. Like, I feel like artists are pretty open to doing that, at least from my experience. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, what I think is, or what I wonder is, if you did get 1,000 emails, would you end up saying that you are a big shot?
No, I'm saying like if someone that is like, because like if I'm pretty sure people like Sparth, he probably gets a lot of emails about like people asking him to look at their work, right?
Yeah,
But
I'm just joking. Uh, Wait, what were you asking us? So, of just, yeah.
no,
Sorry.
I'm just saying like I was just saying like how artists in general are pretty open to giving feedback if you
Oh, yeah.
ask them or email them.
Yeah, definitely. I always try to get back to students. I mean, it may take a while to get back to students, and I always kind of warn them about that.
Mhm.
Just being obviously busy with job and family. Um, but especially if they're just really genuine and just really wanting help,
Yeah.
always try to like give back. Yeah, I mean, there definitely have been people who are just they're just not very polite. They're kind of just it's almost like they're expecting something from you. Like basically give me your brushes or type of thing.
Mm.
Um, but there's some real genuine people who like seem very appreciative. Really would love to have feedback, and they're really trying to like work in this industry, and always try to get back to those people.
Well, that's great. I'm curious for you, Mitch, just because you shared a bit earlier in this episode that you know you live in a small town in New Mexico. Like, do you ever sort of have like do you ever sort of miss the community, or are you, I mean, you've got a family now, so it's like you've probably got a lot on your plate, and you know talking shop with other artists, maybe, especially, and you're doing your 9 to 5 and all that, maybe by the time you're done with work you're just kind of focused on your family. But do you ever kind of like seek out sort of other fellow artists within the area, or are you pretty content, and you'll see us at Lightbox in a couple months?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know any artist here, a couple maybe, but um, I do miss like talking to people. Because I love talking about art. Like I could talk about that all day, and so I do miss talking, in a studio with other people and like sharing tips and stuff like that. But even working at the studio at some point, especially if you work with like a lot of experienced people, it you tend to not, at least in my experience, you tend to not talk a lot about art. It's almost like everyone kind of turns their back, does their own thing, they make their art for the day. If they do talk about anything, it's like little life things or whatever, and then we all go home, and it wasn't as collaborative as one might think. Um, so that was more of my experience, especially if there's just people with a lot of experience behind them. It was always more the like newer people kind of getting into concept art who would ask all the questions about concept, like how do you do this, how do you do that, kind of stuff. And it was actually kind of infectious, their enthusiasm for wanting to learn. And so I really enjoy, and I even have some of that now, just either speaking with some students or other coworkers, and uh, wanting to help guide them, because I see myself in them, like when I was younger, getting into concept art
Mm.
and that enthusiasm for it. Um, so at a certain point, everyone kind of switches over to that more like teaching mentor type role. And so that's something I would like to kind of pursue more so in the future. But is like for like personal work and my own personal stuff. Like I said, I think I'm really like trying to get what do I like? What do I think is cool, whether it's for better or worse. And so I don't really talk to too much people about any of my personal work or anything like that. Um, So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I think with you sharing that, it kind of helps me realize something about myself where I like obviously I am approaching this episode with it's obvious like I do miss certain things that like forums afforded us, and there are aspects of face to face interaction that I really appreciate, um, but I think that like I just like the idea of collaborating. I like the idea of exchanging ideas. Mitch, I messaged you uh, a month or so ago when I was at that coffee shop that you and I went to when I first visited Linwood, and I was hanging out with Paul, one of my buddies, and he's very familiar with the project I'm working on, and he shares some ideas, and we were just breaking ground on story. He was just like sharing some thoughts, and it was kind of like revelatory for me, where I was just like, oh my gosh, like I can approach it from a different angle, and it could elevate, the characters and all that. And I used to do that with him, like before I went to, I guess before I got my first job. We just go to cafes and sketch, and just talk about stories and stuff like that. So it's just I think that maybe, and I know not everyone's like that. Some people, they might be the exact opposite. Artists tend to be introverts, but I think that that's something I'm just kind of realizing about myself. It's just like, yeah, I like collaborating. I like exchanging ideas. I don't like to always assume that I have the best idea, and I think that it kind of running through my friends or coworkers or whatever, it kind of makes me feel uh, like I'm sort of refining it in some ways, or at least I'm exploring different options. But yeah, sorry, that's a little private, but
No, I mean that's a very good thing to do. Obviously, like being collaborative in that sense, And that's something I'm always like trying to get better at, and try and just share with people more. But yeah, it's something you have to work at sometimes because obviously I'm definitely one of those more introverted type of artists. I like to just have my head down and work a lot of times, and it's a lot of times like if if I don't like it, it's like I don't want to show it. I kind of a lot of times I kind of know what's wrong with it. I just don't know how to fix it yet. And obviously in those times it would be good to get someone else's opinion on it. I know probably the answer could be very easily understood if you just share with more people. So
mm. You'd mentioned that you want to get into like uh, education to some extent, like courses. I know a guy over here.
oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's already done a workshop for us, so yeah, and it was very good, and it's
Yeah.
It's like ages ago now.
that was a long time ago. That was pre-COVID, I think.
It was, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
2019, I think.
Yeah.
Wow, 2019 was a long time ago, but it doesn't feel like a long time ago. But it does feel like
Yeah.
a long time ago.
Those
uh,
COVID
The,
years went by so
the
quick.
industry's changed a lot since then, like in the world too. So it's yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's definitely been shifts. Okay, so before we wrap up this episode, I received a email from a listener, and I had mentioned in episode 2 with Amanda Kiefer that we were gonna uh, tackle this question. Uh, I forgot about the question by the end of the episode, so we are going to talk about it here. So I'm going to just read it out loud, and then we'll give the best answer that we can. So this is from Luna. Her question, I'm assuming her. Uh, Love your first episode. Thanks for sharing. Just some feedback, comments I'd like to share. As the game industry is so tough right now, is it possible to cover some topics about what other adjacent career concept artists can pursue or creative way to survive as an artist? Thanks, Luna. That's a very prescient question to ask. Just given that this past week, sorry, we are recording this on July 11th. Um, there were a lot of people that were laid off, and some studios kind of have really murky waters to tread in the future. So I totally understand the spirit of this question. Just kind of wanting to think of alternative routes that can be taken. You know, Josh, I think you kind of brought up the spirit of this question a bit earlier of we are kind of living in a time where there's more options than ever in terms of what we could do, right?
Yeah, like yes, there are more options, but that also means like there's more people trying to do that too, right? And so I think it's as competitive as ever. Making art for a living is just, if you look at it, the number is quite small compared to like a traditional like job, right? And so either way, it's going to be very competitive. And I think right now, it, with all the layoffs and all that, how the industry is looking, like yeah, it is like hard to get like a traditional concept art job. But I do think if you're like, I always like to think, and maybe I'm being too optimistic, if you trust yourself and you do what you think is art that you like, right? And you just really stay true to yourself and not try to, you know, do something that you're like, oh, I'm trying to work for Disney, so I'm going to draw Mickey Mouse, right? Like, if that's not your interest, don't do that. Try to like do something that you really like, that you really feel like you have a passion for, and then I like to think that can help out in whatever however you want to like sell your art. You can do prints, you can sell prints, you can make like comic books, short scenes or something, or even just like try. Some people are very good at going on YouTube or Twitch to like talk and do their art, right? So I can go on and on, but I want maybe Mitch and you, Robin, to like talk about this too. So.
Yeah, I mean, it never really occurred to me that, that obviously there's probably a lot of YouTubers and content creators that are, maybe that's their sole job, like kind of creating art content. And, instead of necessarily working in the industry, they're teaching a lot. There's obviously lots of workshops and stuff like that. Obviously it is hard. Art has always been hard, forever to be successful at it. And maybe it's only going to get harder. Or, we kind of just really don't have any idea. I'm a bit of a romantic I'm just like, if you work really hard at it and you do the thing that you think is really good, then you will find success with it in some way. And lots of times you may not know what doors are going to open or what that's going to be. That's clearly my career has gone that way. I couldn't even fathom being where I'm at today, because I couldn't have ever thought that could have, that path would have opened up for me. So I would say that I think cultivating your taste is such a huge thing, that obviously we use art and the fundamentals of art as a way to speak our taste, right? Like we have to learn how to speak in order to create a fully formed sentence. So if you have really good taste, you're going to create a really interesting sentence. And so and more so, that's really at the end of the day, what you're getting paid for is your taste in certain things. You're showing people your creativity, your view on something very specific that other people wouldn't think to do. And so if you can cultivate that taste, that's going to be one of your biggest things that you can use to promote yourself and to get people to notice your art and get a job in this industry.
Yeah, no, great stuff, guys. And I think what I have to add to all that is like probably the word that stands out to me is diligence. I think I definitely know some artists that they've been trying to find work, and they're kind of doing non-creative work to kind of help make ends meet. But they haven't lost the spirit, right? They haven't lost that vigor to work hard and keep applying, um, or even finding different opportunities, as Josh was alluding to, right? There's other ways to put yourself out there, and piggyback on what Mitch was saying. Yeah, if you have something that's awesome, people will see it as awesome. And I know that we live in the day of you know just so many freaking artists, and so many things to click on. And I know that sometimes it could be uh, difficult to stand out, get noticed, go viral, or whatever. But I think that's where the diligence really comes in. If you really have a trajectory that you want to strike at, um, it just means that you have to be persistent and not give up, and to also be real with yourself, because if you're struggling to um, pay rent, mortgage, or whatever, those are realities that you have to take care of, especially if you're responsible for other people. um, and at the very least, you should be responsible for yourself. I know it's glamorous to think about, like, oh, I'm just gonna be sitting at my desk and doing art all the time, but you have to also look at the other side of it, where it's not very glamorous to see yourself fall apart, or to um, struggle in other aspects of life. So I think that's just important to you could be diligent, and you could also just balance things out for the sake of just making sure that you're uh, you're healthy and you're well. So there you go, Luna. You got three answers. So sorry it took so long. By the time this gets put out online, it's probably been a month since you wrote in, so I'm really sorry about that. Maybe I'll just send you a little clip as soon as this recording's done. Well, before we close out, is there anything else that you guys want to plug or share? I mean, we've got your social media handles there. Everyone can take a look at their awesome work. These guys have been, it's always been a treat seeing them post new work, or even just going back to their old work. Like Josh, I was kind of revisiting your art. I feel like every time I go to your website, I see something that I didn't notice before. Um,
I haven't updated that website in like
okay.
years because like yeah, it's I mean it's just part of it is like once you like because I'm more in that like management position, so it's like it's a lot more like team building and like directing, not directing, well kind of directing, but also like helping people grow and that type of thing. So yeah, but once in a while I'll do art, and I've been thinking more and more like hey I want to just like do more art on the side still. So
Yeah.
it always goes back to it. Like to be honest, like for I know it sounds like very like oh like I'm already in the industry, so I can think like this. But for me, it's always been like if I focus on art, if I put in the work, if I put in the passion and the time, for whatever reason, it always has paid off for me
Mm.
on the art side. It really is like if it's like something I'm like really I feel like it's good, I like it, and I do it, it tends to turn out well. At least every time. That's whenever I run into some obstacle, that's been true, and so I will keep doing that if I, you
Yep. Yeah, I don't have anything to plug. But I definitely will agree with Josh there. Follow your own intuition. It always comes out the best.
Yep. At work we say you gotta let the artist cook.
There you go.
Like don't direct them too much or be too like handholdy. You just gotta let that creativity go and see what you get. Yeah.
That's right.
Cool. Well, Thank you for joining me, you guys, on this episode. I hope this won't be the last appearance, but I totally understand if it is. Um, but yeah, yeah, we should. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, and catch you in episode 3. Bye.
All right. See you later.